What's up, everybody? On today's show, Texas A&M head coach Mike Elko, conversation with him, and a landmark day for paying college athletes from the schools directly. We'll catch you up. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And this episode presented to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, we're going to get to the landmark decision from the NCAA here in a little bit and what that means moving forward. But we had a great opportunity last night to catch up with Texas A&M head coach Mike Elko, speaking in Houston Thursday night at the Texas A&M 2024 Coaches Night. We were there with a few other reporters as Coach Elko spoke really briefly with the media. Traffic and everything, he was hung up, so we didn't get him as long as we thought we would get him, but answered some pretty intriguing questions as his team is in the the break between spring ball and get ready for summer ball, and as he heads into his first season as now head football coach at Texas A&M. Of course, previously had been their defensive coordinator, was head coach at Duke recently, and now he is the head man in College Station. So without further ado, here was Coach Mike Elko.
What I don't know if we've gotten to ask you about your take on the 12th man tradition, giving the guy the jersey. What's kind of your thought on that and your process maybe for picking that next guy?
Yeah, I think obviously it's something that's very special to Texas A&M tradition, and so we want to make sure we take our time, we do it right. We got a really good chance to go through spring and evaluate the roster. I think we've got it narrowed down to a few guys. Now what we want to do is kind of give the team an opportunity to kind of vote on who they think should wear 12, and I think that's kind of how we're going to do it.
College Station is so centrally located to some of the nation's biggest cities, but Houston in particular it's closest to. When did you kind of become aware of how important recruiting was to A&M from Houston?
Probably 12 hours on the job the last time I was here. Listen, I don't know who I'm talking to with that.
Okay.
So I think the first guy we went after when I got hired last time was Leon O'Neal, and he was a Cypress kid, and you start driving around this area, and there's such great school districts down here, and obviously the proximity to College Station is really critical and really important, and so it's really good.
I haven't gotten to talk to you since spring ended. Just your overall thoughts, how everything went, spring, settling in, getting this team ready to go.
Yeah, I think obviously we're a work in progress, which you would expect. I thought the kids made tremendous strides during the spring, but we got a long way to go. We got a lot of work to do this summer, a lot of work to do in fall camp before we're ready to go for Notre Dame.
You had 6-7 months to assess the roster and obviously mold it a little bit in your vision. What do you think of the talent you have on hand? Do you have the talent to accomplish what you guys think you can?
Yeah, I mean, listen, with these kinds of jobs, you don't have a long leash to get it done. And so it's less about evaluating whether we have the talent to get it done. I think it's more about evaluating the talent we have and then formulating a plan to get it done, right? You don't have time to try to figure out what you have, what you don't have. You just got to figure out how to take the roster you have and mold it into a winner as quick as you possibly can, and obviously that's what we hope to do.
With the House versus NCAA settlement coming down today, how much of that affected your day-to-day job, and moving forward, how much do you feel like that's going to affect kind of the day-to-day job of a head football coach?
Well, you're the first I've heard of it coming down today, so obviously I'm aware of it. I'm aware of what's going on. I think there's still so many unknowns about what it's going to look like, the specifics. So I think right now you just have this general feeling that there's going to be a big sweeping change to what this looks like in 2025 and beyond. But from a coaching perspective, where we try to live is certainties, and how do we formulate a plan based on certainties, we certainly don't have the ability to know what the specifics are, so it's hard to think too much about it.
For guys that were limited during spring, your Cam Dewberry, your Shamar Turner, Aggie, Donovan Green, Eni White, what are they all back, or are there still some of them still trying to make their way?
No, I think most of those guys are back. Obviously, we haven't done anything yet. The kids have been on vacation since finals, and so they'll report back Sunday night. We'll start getting to work next week. but we don't anticipate having any problems going into summer.
Couple more in today, right?
Yeah.
How's that going so far? Any unexpected developments on that front?
No. Everything went just like we thought. They all had rooms, which was great. They all brought the stuff they needed to move into those rooms. And so real smooth process today.
Everybody supposed to be there is here.
Yeah.
When you go watch a Cleveland Browns practice, what do you learn from that? Like, what do you try to gain from that in terms of your job?
First off, I learned that I can't go anywhere without being noticed, apparently. No, that's something I've always tried to do, and I certainly don't think it's unique or it's unique to me. You get this opportunity to kind of go out and professionally develop, and it's just something I've always tried to take advantage of. I've known Coach Stefanski for a really long time. I coached him when he was a college football player, and so him and I have talked a lot over the years, and just the opportunity presented to go up there and spend a day or two with him, it was great.
Do you guys have any spots you need to fill on the roster, or are you guys set now?
We can't. There's none left. So we're at 85. We're locked in with where we want to be. And so, unless you can get free agency invented, we're kind of locked in where we are.
That Notre Dame game already had so much hype. Now College Game Day is coming. Is it kind of neat from your perspective, based on your prior experience with Notre Dame and then their quarterback as well, just how it's kind of a small circle of things as well, but also the hype of College Game Day coming?
Yeah, I think, obviously, listen, College Game Day puts a spotlight on our campus, and that's phenomenal. And then there's a big full circle moment for me, because the last time we hosted it was 2018, which was really the first big game I played in Kyle Field against Clemson, right? And so now being back as the head coach, getting that spotlight again, having another big game in Kyle, be a great way to start the season.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
Our thanks again to head coach Mike Elko. Now, the SEC meetings down in Destin are going to be getting underway next week. And one interesting note, Brandon Marcello of 24/7 Sports tweeting out yesterday, he said the SEC has not fielded much discussion in recent months on whether to play an 8-game or 9-game conference schedule in 2026 and beyond. He said, as of today, several administrators don't expect it to even be a hot topic at SEC spring meetings next week. I found that interesting because that has been one of the biggest topics of discussion here in recent years in the SEC, with the news of Oklahoma and Texas coming into the conference, and to get it more equitable and get a stronger rotation of having 16 teams. The proposition was out there to play 3 permanent SEC opponents, and the other 6 rotate, and every 4 years you would play, every team in the conference and play them at their home and then play them at your home. The balance seems to make sense, but obviously there's been still a lot of holdup from the likes of, South Carolinas and the Kentuckys that have their permanent rival non-conference with, South Carolina with Clemson, Kentucky with Louisville, Florida with Florida State. I mean, some of these schools don't want to play 9 SEC games and that tough opponent, but I would argue a lot of SEC teams already play a tough non-conference. And you're supposed to play, at least one non-conference with a Power 5. So, this year, as example, Alabama is going to go play at Wisconsin in week 2. A&M's hosting Notre Dame week 1. LSU is going to play USC in Las Vegas. So you're already doing it anyway. But I think some of those middle tier programs kind of look at it as, well, our 4 easy, non-conference cupcakes. We can get those 4 wins, and then we really only have to win 2 conference games to get to 6-6 and get to a bowl game. I get it, but kind of interesting though. And look, there's a lot more on the plate of these coaches right now, if we're being real. I mean, with this NCAA settlement that's coming, and getting ready to be able to pay players directly from the school, on top of everything with NIL, transfer portal dates. Do we make it just one transfer portal date? Do we keep it, with the spring portal and the fall portal? Do we move up the early signing period, which is obviously, they're talking about doing that and moving that to the first week of December. So there's a lot more stuff on the plates of these head coaches right now. And it sounds like, adding a 9th SEC game is going to be something that's just going to be kicked down the road. So anyway, we'll keep track of that for all the big storylines coming out of SEC meetings in Destin next week. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we're going to hit on that big time landmark agreement yesterday that is going to lead to an NCAA settlement and have a big change on college football as we know it. That's coming your way here in just a sec. But first, a message for our friends over at FanDuel. It is winner take all right now in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel they are giving you a shot to bring home a big victory of your own. Right now, if you've never signed up with them before, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to be bet on spreads, money lines, player props, whatever it is. Check it out at FanDuel.com/lockedon. You want to make sure you put in that /lockedon because that's going to get you that special offer that we were telling you about. And of course, tons of college football action up there as well. They got a lot of the week 1 betting lines up there already, some over-under win totals for the SEC and college football alike. So if you want to get in on the action, see what they got going, go check them out at FanDuel.com/lockedon. And when you go there, they will show you, all the different areas of the country that FanDuel is available. If it's in your area, you're locked and loaded, you're good to go. Get signed up. Go download the app. They are FanDuel. They are America's #1 sports book. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC. And hey, if you're tired of the screaming heads on your TV on some of those daytime talk shows, might I recommend Locked On Sports Today? It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports without all the screaming. It's Locked On Sports Today, streaming for you 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, we got to jump into this big news that came out yesterday. Certainly a landmark day in the world of college sports as we know it. And here's what happened yesterday. Basically, the SEC and the Pac-12 conferences were the last ones to join the party when it came to voting on the NCAA settlement that will change the landscape of college athletics as we know it. The agreement has now been approved by all parties. And for the first time, colleges will now be able to pay athletes for their participation in sports. On Thursday, the NCAA Board of Governors voted to enact the settlement that will see the organization put the House versus NCAA case to bed. So they don't have to go to court over this. It was going to cost them way more to do that. But here it will cost them $2.7 billion in damages to be paid to plaintiffs. The money will be paid to athletes who were seeking retro pay for lost income from NIL and television funds that were not in place before the inception of NIL in 2021. So basically, this goes back 4 years. So all college athletes last 4 years, they're going to get something out of this from this settlement. I assume football is probably going to get more and so on and so forth. But the amount will be paid back over a 10-year period, while the settlement will also introduce a new form of payment for current student athletes. The monetary settlement, agreed to by all the major conferences, will help pay damages to plaintiffs who were involved in 3 different antitrust lawsuits. So, look, a lot of stuff gets real into the weeds, but the biggest thing about it, unless you're a recent former athlete and you're looking forward to getting a check, in addition to this monetary settlement, the approval by all conferences and the Board of Governors will also pave the way for revenue sharing in college athletics. What does that mean? Well, the current model agreed upon will give schools the option to share upwards of $20 million with athletes at each institution. Now, it should be noted that schools do not have to participate, but some type of revenue sharing will most likely occur at every school across the country in some form. According to sources, this is from Trey Wallace over at Outkick, the plan is to have the new revenue sharing model in place before the start of the 2025 season in the fall. So, a little over a year from now, this thing is going to go into effect. And what Trey writes, he says, for schools in the Big Ten, the SEC, money's not going to be much of a problem, thanks to their lucrative TV deals that were negotiated over the past few years. Other conferences outside of the ACC, the Big 12, the money received from the new playoff TV deal, rights deal will play a big part in them being able to pay out as well. Now, conferences like the Sun Belt, the Big East, and others are certainly going to have a much smaller revenue sharing pot for student athletes, which has been a point of contention in most of the meetings that involve these leagues. One of the bigger questions that is still yet to be answered centers around if athletes that are new to college sports will be able to opt into the deal on a yearly basis. An agreement was reached for this round. The problem of future litigation against the NCAA still looms, and there could be more future lawsuits. But there's been a push from some in the industry to find private equity to help pay for the cost of a yearly revenue sharing model. With an initial cash fusion helping to set off future problems when it comes to affording the cost on a yearly basis. Athletic department leaders across the country, they're going to be scrambling now to try to come up with plans on how to handle yearly budgeting, considering the money will be coming in from ticket sales, the television revenue, merchandise deals, all this stuff. And there is still a large majority of schools outside the power conferences wondering how they're even going to financially afford this new model. It is a big, big deal. And then it comes down to, let's say you're a school that has a $20 million budget to pay for players. How do you break it down? Does the starting quarterback get $1 million? Does everybody get 30,000? It's going to be very interesting to see how this all works. But it is no doubt it is a new era of college athletics upon us, and leaders do not have much time to get ready for this thing. Like we said, start of fall 2025, and athletic department's got to prepare new line items that could balloon up to $30 million annually in shared revenue, upwards of $22 million in revenue. And something interesting to watch here. I mean, the schools among the Power Four conferences are expected to pay current players roughly $20 million annually. So most of the schools in the SEC, they'll have a slush fund of $20 million, and that's how they can, divide out how they want. But Yahoo Sports reporting it could start as high as $22 million annually per school. Now, Title IX is going to complicate some of this stuff. Some of the administrators are saying, well, how are we going to do equal pay for everybody? If football is the revenue generator, it's bringing in money, that's where the revenue needs to go back into. Jason Belzer, who is the president of Student Athlete NIL, he said it's very likely we're going to see non-revenue sports get massacred. Title IX is going to be a very big battle. But the new model will likely lift scholarship limits, but also limit roster sizes. What does that mean? Well, theoretically, football roster sizes could be trimmed from 120 down to 100 players. But scholarships that are currently mandated 85, well, if you got a budget of money to pay, why can't you just put everybody on scholarship? So, walk-ons, you all get scholarships. Now the school's going to pay for it. And for people, for baseball fans like myself, where you've been kind of limited here, this will open the door now where schools can now pay for, full scholarships for the whole baseball team if they want. Again, that's up to the school and how they want to allocate distributing the revenue, but it is an option. Now, one more thing here, and the question that's being proposed is, what about NIL collectives? Well, Yahoo Sports reported the NCAA has also proposed new enforcement infrastructure to target pay-for-play and booster-led NIL collectives. They're basically saying, look, if the schools are going to share revenue with the players, we don't need these big, monster collectives anymore. Basically, they said the new rules around compensation would include the prohibition of booster payments if they are not true NIL. Schools will also be provided economic incentives to house NIL collectives within the university. Russell White, president of the Collective Association, said collectives aren't going to go away if there's a salary cap. Universities will continue to want to compete above and beyond the base revenue shares. I mean, you're right. I mean, look, you would think $20 million per school is enough to pay for student athletes, but look, the rich get richer. I mean, if you want a big time player, I mean, look at what Jaden Rashada was offered at Florida. Granted, he didn't get it, but if you got a $20 million budget, you're not going to pay $13 million of that for one player. But that's where the collectives and NIL comes in. A business or booster could pay that to a player. So I don't know, man. It's going to be fascinating to see. It is certainly a new age of college athletics, and it's going to take some getting used to, and we're all going to have to get used to it. Give a little credit here to Ryan Brown of Next Round Live. He said, I, for one, have never understood why anyone has an issue with college players being paid as employees. He said the glorification of the word amateurism has always been puzzling to me. Many will say they will no longer watch college football, but spoiler alert, they will. Look, it's a lot of the old school folks will not like this because, it's you're paying players, but again, it's not balanced. They're not technically going to be employees, but it'll be interesting to see how they code them. Because again, if you're paying $1 million for the starting quarterback, and then the school's paying $20,000 for the starting left tackle or whatever, it's like, how long is that agreement for? Do I get this every year the next 3 years? Do I get an increase next year if I stay? A lot of this still needs to be figured out, all the details regarding this. But again, new age in college athletics. And hey, blue chips was a long time ago. It is now going to be legal for schools to directly, literally hand a suitcase full of cash over. Cam Newton, come on down. Tennessee and McDonald's bags of cash, come on down. This is all legal now. Will Wade, come on back. You're invited back. This is all legal. So, Laramie Tunsil, put on the gas mask. They can pay for all your mom's electric bills. New age of college athletics. It'll be fun to see how all this plays out. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Coming up next, we've got some tidbits to jump into. We will go around the conference. That is next. But first, this episode presented to you by our friends over at the Game Time app with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time will take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets or whatever else you're looking for. They got last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports concerts, comedy shows, whatever it is. They got it up there for you. They feature flash deals where you can save even more with their exclusive in-app deals. I love the all-in pricing. It's a feature you can toggle, shows your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. That's the best way to go. It literally shows you, if you select all-in pricing, that price that it shows you, that is what you're going to pay, guaranteed. The seat view is also a great feature. You get a panoramic view from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect before you buy it. That's what I like as well. Is there an obstruction in front of me? Does this look like a good view? Is this high up enough? All that is there for you on the Game Time app. And again, the lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDON COLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. It is last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, continue on here, Locked On SEC, and we got some tidbits to get into, so let's do this. We'll jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch! Around the conference.
And we start over at Ole Miss as Lane Kiffin getting one of his guys taken care of. Offensive coordinator Charlie Weis Jr., among the highest paid coordinators in college football after he inked a new contract following last season. His new deal almost makes him the highest paid offense coordinator in the SEC. Signed a new 3-year contract that will pay him $1.65 million this year. That's a $150,000 raise from his previous salary. His base salary will increase by $100K for each of the next 2 years. Only 4 offense coordinators in the country are making more than Charlie Weis Jr. now. That is Mike Denbrock at Notre Dame. Of course, he was at LSU the last couple of years. Notre Dame stealing him away. He'll make $2.1 million. Chip Kelly leaving his head coaching job at UCLA to go be Ohio State's OC after Bill O'Brien left. Chip Kelly will make $2 million. Andy Ludwig at Utah will make $1.8 million. That's one I never would have guessed. And then Garrett Riley over at Clemson, one of the big additions there, making $1.7 million at Clemson. The next closest SEC OCs in terms of salary, Bobby Petrino at Arkansas, Kirby Moore at Mizzou. They're making about $1.5 million annually, and then Mike Bobo at Georgia making $1.4 million. One other Ole Miss note here, Ole Miss transfer running back Kedrick Reescano. Yes, it's Reescano. I know there's a C in there, but it's pronounced Reescano. He announced his commitment to Arizona this week. He entered the transfer portal after just one season in Oxford, played mostly on special teams as a true freshman, was a highly touted recruit, 4-star prospect, the number 7 ranked running back in the 2023 cycle on the On3 industry ranking. But he's on the move, and he will head to Arizona. He'll go play in the Big 12 this coming season. Over at Florida, defensive lineman Makai Boyro, I think is how you say it, spent multiple nights in jail after being arrested for fleeing police on a high-speed chase, causing a crash with an injury. According to On3 Sports, the Monroe County Police report details that he reached a speed of over 150 miles per hour while fleeing police. He's 18 years old, from the Atlanta area, and he was clocked by one police officer doing 86 miles per hour. and they turned on their lights, and he sped up to over 150 miles per hour. They said he drove recklessly through traffic, speeds of over 100 miles per hour, passing vehicles on the shoulder, and entered a rest area, drove through the rest area, nearly stopped at the exit before quickly accelerating again, entering back onto the interstate. And there was a Chevrolet Malibu that was wrecked, damaged in the rear. 58-year-old driver was taken to the hospital for a possible head injury. So not good. And his charges included fleeing the scene, serious injury by vehicle, DUI, drugs, and possession of marijuana, less than 1 ounce. And he reportedly told police he was driving back to Florida and fled because his license was suspended. Look, it's not an excuse. Don't outrun police. It will never end well. But he did sign with Florida after receiving interest from 25 other schools. He was a 3-star prospect, number 86 recruit from the state of Georgia. But see what happens with his future there over at Florida. Over at Arkansas, their former running back Isaiah Augustov officially committing to Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. He appeared as a true freshman at Arkansas in 11 games, made 1 start, ended the year with 35 carries for over 200 yards and a touchdown. But moving on from Arkansas to Colorado. And quick SEC baseball nugget. Thought this was interesting with the SEC tournament still going on in Hoover. The Baseball America's latest projections have a record 11 SEC teams making the field of 64. Now, this came out earlier in the week. The number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament was considered to be wide open for the top 4 SEC teams in the conference tournament. But Teddy Cahill writes that he thinks Tennessee will be the number 1 overall seed, and they got a win in the SEC tournament yesterday over Texas A&M, so that helps the resume. He did note that North Carolina is a team to watch. Florida is a team hoping to make the field, and here's what they have. This is from Baseball America's latest projections. They have, as the 1 seeds, Tennessee, A&M, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Georgia, all expected to be in the top 8 or top 8 seeds. Now, Georgia lost on day 1 of the tournament to LSU. Kentucky also lost, but then came back to win on Thursday. Arkansas went 0-2 in the tournament, but according to multiple reports, they don't think that's going to hurt them. And then Mississippi State also projected to be a 1 seed, but to be in that 8 through 16. So host a regional, but not a super regional. But A&M, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Georgia, all in the consideration to be regional and super regional hosts. Now, the 2 seeds that project South Carolina and Vanderbilt. And then the 3 seeds, they have Alabama, LSU, and Florida. Now, the interesting thing is LSU is just on a tear. They had another win yesterday in the SEC tournament, beating South Carolina. And we'll see if that jumps them up to a 2 seed. In fact, I would probably assume LSU is going to be a 2 seed at this point with their latest hot streak these last couple of weeks. So we'll see how it plays out, but certainly impressive to get 11 teams from the SEC in. And one more note, Mike Bianco, Ole Miss head coach, will return for his 25th season in Oxford, according to rebelgrove.com. Bianco and school officials met on Wednesday, a day after the Rebels ended their season with a loss to Mississippi State in the SEC tournament. They went 27-29 overall, 11-19 in SEC play. He will reorganize his assistants, including a shuffle that will add a new member to the on-field staff, but it's the 2nd straight losing record for the Rebels since they won the national title in 2022. But Bianco had won at least 30 games overall and at least 13 conference games every season until 2023. He has 4 years remaining on his 6-year agreement. He signed 2 years ago. His base salary of $1.6 million, and his buyout at the end of the 2025 season will be approximately $3.9 million. So the complete cost of a change this offseason would have been about $7.7 million because of his buyout. So, you know, look, Rebel fans might be upset that last season didn't go well, this season didn't go well, but look, very well-respected guy. Certainly winning the championship 2 years ago buys you a little bit of security, but he certainly needs to turn this thing around and get back to winning next year. And there you have it. That's the latest going on around the conference. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. Going back on Monday, we'll be recapping all the action from the weekend. And hey, for your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering all the top sports stories of the day. You can find it on YouTube or the Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app over there. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We will talk to you guys tomorrow.